Don't forget to hit that like button, everybody. We got a good crowd in here today, as always. Appreciate all of you guys. Let's go to our main man, Brandon Lee Goutman from Bleeding Green Nation, joining us right here. BLG, you can follow him at Brandon Goutman on the X platform. BLG, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, brother? 5 days of camp done and dusted. We're moving right along.
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's always nice to have Eagles training camp to talk about.
Yes, yeah, sir. We got actual stuff. Padded practice also yesterday to talk about. And that was a hot one, BLG. Hotter for you. You're closer to the sun.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for recognizing that.
Yeah. We just talked about some of the competitions, and we'll talk about that. But before I get to that, I wanted to run this by because there were a couple of interesting, I'm starting to call them big bombs in his press conferences yesterday. One was Adoree Jackson, who I think most of us said, he's doing pretty well, and a bit kind of threw cold water on that. And then when I asked him about Cooper DeJean, did you find that strange when Vic was saying, I asked him about, the dual role, and he was saying, well, I think it's going well, going fine, he said. To be honest, we haven't had enough snaps of him in it for him to judge. Our offense is primarily playing 11 personnel out there against us, so we haven't had a ton of base snaps up to this point. I'd like to see him get more and get tested. I don't know that he's ever been tested. Then the follow-up was, is that something you can coordinate with Nick Sirianni? And he said, yeah, and you're laughing. I mean, we'd like to be able to. Right now, we haven't been able. What does that mean? Isn't that what practice is for?
I mean, it's on brand for Vic Fangio, who's always at some point, and basically every press conference, is either outright saying or at least alluding to the fact that you like to practice more. So there's that. But it is funny at the same time because Vic was the one who was downplaying their usage of base defense back in the spring.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, that's true. And you're right about the fact that I didn't really correlate it to extra reps, and you're probably right about that because they don't practice enough. But I just thought, I don't know, because if you hear coaches talk about joint practices, and we'll have one with Cleveland coming up soon, all the coaches say they're better because you can script what you want to work on. And that's where I went. I'm like, why can't you just walk into Nick's office and say, hey, I need a few more base defense snaps. Can we script a period? That's kind of where I took it. Do you think that communication is going on?
Yeah, I think there's probably layers to all of that. And, as much as Vic Fangio is honest and probably speaks his mind and should get a lot of what he wants, given the performance, I think there's also, lanes you kind of have to stay in to some extent as it relates to, higher ups and how they view things. So
that's another thing he said with Howie. Sometimes Howie signs players and there's nothing I can do about it, basically.
Right.
That was
That was a good comment.
Yeah. So it was interesting. But anyway, so I plan to ask Nick that next time he's available. We'll see how it shakes out. Competitions, though, that's the main part of it. So we're through 5 practices. We got one fully padded practice, shells in one as well. But I don't see a lot of things clearing up on the defensive side of the ball. Is that how you've seen it early in this training camp?
Yeah, we're not really ready to call these battles here. Like even though I think Jahad Campbell will eventually overtake Jeremiah Trotter Jr. at linebacker, I don't think Trotter Jr. is going down without a fight. He's putting up a really well. He's playing really well.
I've heard that from everybody that he's played well.
It reminds me of Nico Dean from last year, just in terms of some of the recognition stuff and being especially good downhill. I just feel like every time he's just in the right position against a running play. And then even in the passing plays, some of them which he's lost in coverage, he's still in the right position. He might not be tall enough, might be not fast enough to finish and make the play, but he's never lost out there. And I think that's big, the mental part of the game for linebacker, especially. That's really big. So you look at that. You look at the fact that I don't think there's been a separator at cornerback yet. I still think that's a battle very much ongoing. safety with Makuba missing practice time. Sidney Brown, stock is going up by default, but it's not necessarily Makuba versus Sidney Brown. It's them versus the field as well in terms of being able to, if they sign someone or if they, let's say they love Mac McWilliams and play him at slot and then move Cooper DeJean to full-time safety. Like there's different things that could still go on. I don't think it's, it's either Makuba or Brown as much as it's those guys versus free agent or another option.
Yeah.
What about
Good.
what about edge? Because I'm concerned about edge. I was concerned coming in about edge. I've seen nothing to alleviate that. In fact, more. Nolan Smith goes down with a concussion, and I'm like, whoa! All right, look at this thing now. Josh Uche is getting first team reps, mixing Patrick Johnson in.
Yeah,
Azeez Ojulari hasn't done much, hasn't stood out. How concerned are you with edge? Because I've kind of gotten a little bit more than alleviating those concerns.
Yeah, the depth there, right, is really what stands out. Like I'm excited and I'm intrigued by the upside of Nolan Smith, the upside of Jalen Hunt. But when it comes to proven players in that department, and then you lose Brandon Graham, who's very much a proven commodity that you had there. It's just you don't know what you have. I think Ojulari to me has been a little bit underwhelming, or at least I'm more intrigued right now by Uche. He's coming off his best practice that he had on Tuesday. But again, it's one practice. The track record, it's inconsistent. The high water mark is there, but you just don't really have anything you can kind of. The floor for that position is not. It doesn't look very high in terms of what you're able to just kind of hang your hat on there.
Yeah.
BLG, all right, what's your thoughts on Makuba right now? I was optimistic on the player, and I still am. I'm not counting him out, but I'm looking at micro. I'm looking at 1 year right now. I'm not looking at what his career can be 3-4 years. I'm looking at 1 year. You got rid of Gardner Johnson, and he was drafted to technically be the replacement. 3 practices deep, he's on the sideline. 20 weeks, guy's 185 pounds soaking wet. At least he looks like he is to me. What's your concern level or lack of concern on Andrew Makuba after 5 days of camp?
It really depends on how much practice time he misses here. Like if he's out these couple days and then he's back on the field tomorrow, let's say on Thursday, then that's not like, the biggest issue. It might just be a little bit of a blip on the radar there. Right. If he's missing, a whole week, maybe more, that's huge in terms of just Vic Fangio and trust. Right. And if he's not out there, he's not learning the defense, and he's a rookie, I just don't think Vic is going to trust him to play, and that's a big factor. So it really comes down to and I think he really needs to play in these preseason games. Like I think that's really important for him. If he's missing some time there, in addition to the practices, and maybe let's see the joint training camp practices against the Browns as well. That's all critical to me. We saw it last year with Cooper DeJean and how he missed a big portion of training camp and then was not really trusted to play until closer to October there. So if Makuba only misses a couple of days, he's back, no big deal. If he's missing, again, a lot more than that, then that really puts him behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, it'll be big to get back because, that first preseason game is coming. So he's got to get back quickly if he wants to play in that particular game. So something to keep an eye on. Offensively, Zander asked me this question yesterday, BLG, and I think it was kind of sloppy yesterday. The officials were there. There were penalties all over the place. I counted 5. I don't know, offensive penalties. I don't know how many you got. So it was kind of sloppy. But, I look at individual players and I say to myself, Jalen's having a good camp. Saquon looks great. Lane and Jordan are dominating. Landon looks dominating. Dallas Goedert's been good. Took a little bit of a step back. I thought that was a positive for the linebackers yesterday. But AJ's AJ. Devontae's been out, but he was great when he's out. Individually, everybody looks good, and I look at other people and they're saying, "Well, the offense doesn't look that good." Well, how do you match those two things up?
Kind of reminds me of just how it went last year in training camp, where I thought Jalen in 2024 got off to a pretty hot start there. They run a lot of tempo early in training camp last year, And I thought Jalen looked sharp. His best 2 days were early on, kind of is how it matched this year, where then he kind of took a little bit of a step back as the defense catches up a bit there. Some people think defense is ahead of offense earlier in camp. There's some of that going on, perhaps. And there's also, I think, a pride thing. As the offense comes out with a couple first days, the defense is like, hey, enough. Like, let's turn this thing around. Let's get the better of them. And then that can kind of, ebb and flow back and forth there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that we're going to see a night and day difference from this offense from last year, just based on what we're seeing so far. But it's also still so early that I don't know how much we can make out of 5 practices when it comes to the offense as a whole. As much as you said there, John, like you don't know what you have in the whole of the offense as much as you just feel good about the parts that are in the offense.
Yeah.
Taking a little bit of time maybe to get some cohesion, you know what I mean? Kind of building. Obviously, you mentioned all the individual players look good. BLG, what's your takeaway from your first view at Kevin Patulo in this new role? First camp, first approach, first press conference, all these different things you've seen. What have you seen from Patulo so far?
Yeah, I mean, he's impressive at the podium, I would say.
Yes, he is.
He just, and not even just in terms of like being entertaining or anything like that. That's not necessarily what matters. But I just think he looks like composed and like calm and in command. And I think that's something you probably want to see from someone in a leadership position like he is. I've said before that I think it's a little too like unfair to just say like the background of Kevin Patulo solely is that he's Nick Sirianni's right-hand man. Like he is, and he has been here, but that's not like his whole entire NFL career attached at the hip. The way that even like someone like, Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier, like going from city to city together. Like I know Kevin Patulo and Nick Sirianni worked together in Indy, but Patulo also worked with Shane Gailey, as he's mentioned before that. And he's just a different person. Like he might be really close with Nick Sirianni, but he's a different human being. And I'm sure he has his own ideas and preferences and philosophies that he can bring to this offense. So I'm intrigued by that. I still think, again, there's a lot of, because of what they've done, that you're probably going to see carry over. And maybe he's not as much as the new ideas guy as is like why you bring in someone like passing game coordinator Parks Frazier, who had just worked down in Miami and had previously had experience in Carolina and Indy as well. And then the quarterback's coach, what's his name? Scott
Leffler.
Yeah, Scott Leffler, who was coming out of Bowling Green in the college ranks. And, I think the Eagles may, are looking to maybe pull some ideas and tweaks from there as well. Because, we all talk about the offensive coordinator, and obviously he is the one who ultimately like puts this together in a big way, has a big role in that. But all these position coaches bring their own specialties in terms of like third down, red zone that they bring to the table as well.
Saquon talk. Are you surprised how much he's been out there? How many touches he's gotten? Because I'm thinking back to last year, and good you're here as a sounding board. I don't remember that last year. Now he's touching the ball all over the place, and I'm going, what's going on here? I mean, they're not hitting, and I get that part of it, but I don't know. I thought we'd see bubble wrap Saquon. To me, it's more like AJ Saquon, where he's always out there. The point AJ the other day was winded. It's tough to wind AJ Brown, but Danny Gray was hurt. Now Wade, Devontae was hurt. So you need extra reps. Why so much workload on Saquon Barkley?
Yeah, I think that's a Saquon thing. I don't think he's the type to like rest on his laurels, to want to be perceived that way as like he's above everyone. I think he's conscious of something like that. And I just don't think that's his mindset. I think he's a grinder and he wants to grind. And obviously the Eagles have to be smart with that, because you don't want them to be taking a bunch of, they're not tackling like you said, but they are still thudding, and, he's getting contacted at times. So, they have to be smart about that. But I think there's something there to, if you want to be a leader on the team, like I imagine he does, and he seems to be when we're seeing him speak on the sideline, that, you kind of have to go out there and grind, and you can't just be like, DeMarco Murray here, who's resting, with a fake injury or, maybe a real injury, but kind of milking it a bit.
DeMarco Murray taking strays from BLG. Yeah. Now, I was just a little surprised by how much he's been working, but he's looked tremendous, by the way. He looks a lot better in camp this year than last year. And last year was pretty good.
Yep.
So I can't imagine this year being better than that, but he looks better in training camp,
Sure.
I think. So that's part of the offense. I'm not as concerned with. To your point, also, the first 2 days being the best. I don't know if you saw JJ Watt's tweet, but I loved it because he said, "Look, you guys got to settle down." I think and I admitted, we evaluate it like it's a game, and sometimes they may be working on specific things, as JJ pointed out. Sometimes we're doing an all bull rush session, or all trying to play this particular coverage, trying to service the offense, or vice versa. In those first 2 days, the Eagles were working on a lot of underneath stuff, quick stuff out, basically layups, and you got the 95% completion percentage. And then it sort of evolves into, okay, now they're throwing it downfield more. So to me, it makes perfect sense. Well, you're not going to have 95% completion rates if you're throwing the football 20 yards down the field. How much of it is that versus just the choppiness of the defense, maybe bandying back and forth?
Yeah, I thought it was impressive that Hurts, going back to even, the 2 OTA practices and the 1 minicamp practice we saw in the first 2 practices of training camp. I mean, the ball was just rarely hitting the ground at all. Yeah. And I definitely think that regardless of, what they're working on there, like it's impressive. And it shows how Hurts has come a long way, because he wasn't doing that earlier in his career. Certainly the ball was hitting the ground a lot more than that. And now, it's obviously cooled off a bit here in more recent days. And like you said, as they're, going downfield a little bit more. So, naturally that's going to come back down from a very high clip that it was. So, I'm not really concerned about that. But I just think there's ebbs and flows to camp. Hurts has not had his best couple practices here. I'm sure he'll bounce back and have some really good ones here. It's kind of funny, of how much we almost can't learn about Jalen Hurts. I think the bar for him to clear in training camp is avoid Carson Wentz's 2020 disaster training camp, where he looked really bad, and that really, did not portend well for him that season. And I would say,
he's already reached that point.
Yeah, I would say Jalen Hurts has already reached that point.
Yeah, he's already reached that bar. Well, yesterday was a big red zone day, so also the field was condensed. And that's always very difficult, tight windows. I'll tell you, it looked to me, it looked a lot like last year. Ball wasn't necessarily coming out quickly, but when they ran the football inside, outside zone, it was tremendous. And the off schedule stuff, obviously, when it breaks down, and that's tough to judge in practice because they're going to blow the whistle early. But a couple of times he's let loose. Their running game is really difficult to deal with in the red zone. Pass game, ball's not coming out on time, but is that just good coverage? What did you see?
I thought it was really a whole team failure from the offense in terms of there's penalties. There were times where Hurts held the ball too long. There were times where Hurts gets the ball to Nia Smith in the end zone, or he gets it to Dallas Goedert in the end zone against Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who, in fairness, had good coverage, but still, there's plays to be made that could have been made, and they weren't made. So I really don't think it was just about one player as much as the whole offense. For whatever reason, there's just kind of mistakes at every level, and they just were not clicking. And, that's something obviously you're trying to iron out over the course of training camp.
Good stuff there. BLG, anybody has stuck out to you at camp that maybe you didn't expect? I'm talking sleeper players. I'm talking back-end receivers. I'm talking some of those, other roster guys that maybe don't come top of mind when people think about this Eagles team. Who stuck out? And it could be good or bad, by the way.
Yeah, it's got to be Elijah Cooks.
Elijah, yeah.
It has to be.
It's always the big receiver. You guys, you tall guys, BLG. Yeah. Everybody loves to talk.
Oh, yeah.
He's been making great catches every day. Every day. I liked what Tanner McKee said about Elijah Cooks. Because Johnny Wilson, this is my problem with Johnny Wilson, who's even taller. As a receiver, not a blocker, Johnny's a great blocker, but as a receiver, he doesn't play up to his size. Elijah Cooks plays up to his size.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've seen from Elijah Cooks.
100%. And, to that Johnny Wilson point, and I think this kind of goes together in terms of Johnny Wilson's been like a stock down for me. And, maybe he makes the team because of his blocking ability, but he can't really separate it all on one-on-ones. And then you have that situation in the red zone earlier this week where
Mac McWilliams,
5'10", Mac McWilliams breaks up a pass for 6'6" Johnny Wilson. It's like that's got to be where he can do something. If he's not going to be able to separate, in the open field, going to have to be useful in the red zone. And that was just really, tough to see, I think, if you're a Johnny Wilson supporter. Whereas Elijah Cook's third practice in a row was making like a highlight grab. And it's not just like, oh, he's feasting or playing against lesser competition. I mean, some of this is against Adoree Jackson, at least in one-on-ones. And I just think, it's 3 practices in a row. And who knows, in the future, we could all say, oh, look, remember that guy, Elijah Cooks, who doesn't amount to anything. But at this current clip he's going at, if he continues on this track, this is, these are the fun parts of training camp where you see someone emerge unexpected. And, he's pushing for a roster spot if he continues to play this way.
And Terrace Marshall got banged up.
Yep.
So, if they're looking for that outside backup receiver.
Yep.
But here's the problem, BLG. They seem, I don't know who this is, but it might be Howie, it might be Nick. But they seem to want Ainias Smith and Johnny Wilson on this team. I
don't disagree, but it's just I don't see it with Ainias Smith. He's had some good moments in one-on-ones. I'll give him that.
He's great in one-on-ones, and then he gets in team drills, can't do anything.
And you know who that reminds me of? And I'm not saying they're the same exact player, but the same exact kind of description you would fit there is Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor had great moments in one-on-ones.
Yeah.
And then you see him in team drills, and he was invisible. So I don't the one-on-ones don't mean a lot to me if you're not also if you're winning one-on-one and you're doing team drills, then that shows me something. But I'm just not really seeing it with Ainias Smith. I don't know what his calling card is. I don't know what you point to with him.
Well, I think he's going to be the punt returner too.
And I don't think, at least, I haven't seen him so much do that in camp this year as much as I did last year, where he didn't look good at that last year. He did very uncomfortable. So I just I'm not seeing it with Ainias Smith.
I think it's funny because to your point about, I said that to Zander, to your point about one-on-ones, he's looked great against Cooper DeJean in one-on-ones. Sure. And then he gets the team drills. And then Vic happened to say, he was asked about, because everybody loves one-on-ones. Everybody loves offensive line, edge rushers. Everybody loves linebackers and running backs. Yesterday was great. That was my favorite part of practice yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave Zangaro asked Vic, how do you weigh those one-on-ones in the evaluation process versus the team reps? And Vic said, me personally, I don't weigh them a lot. So it's one of those things where Vic is throwing the water on it, but it's much more important to be good in team drills than one-on-ones. And Ainias is just, man, but if I were a betting man, BLG, I think he's going to be on this team.
I agree. And I don't think that's a merit thing.
Yeah. It's not always a meritocracy. Yeah. That's definitely true. But flip back to the defense, Adoree Jackson, because Vic also, I think a lot of us said, well, Adoree's playing a little bit better than Kelee Ringo early. Maybe that changed a little bit yesterday. And I think some of Kaylee's, was a little bit overblown because to me with Kelee Ringo, he's there in coverage for the most part. There was the one Terrace Marshall play where he got beat pretty significantly, but he's usually there in coverage and he doesn't make the play at the catch point. He doesn't locate the football, but the coverage isn't bad. And I think you can work with that as a guy getting beat all the time. At the same time, I thought Adoree was playing pretty well. And Vic had that weird answer yesterday. What'd you make of that?
I think it's just honest. I think, all of that in terms of, that wasn't like his guy. Doesn't mean it can't be who he goes with starting. If Adoree, if he has more confidence in Adoree, I think he's going to play him. I think we've seen Vic Fangio plays who he thinks is the best option to play out there. And it was a little weird, but he did at the same time, even though he said that, he did mention that Adoree had a very good practice on Monday. So he did give him credit as well. But it could be the way of motivating him too. Maybe he thinks he needs to be pushed like that. It's hard to get into the head of Fangio sometimes, but I do think that battle is just very much to be determined.
August trades, Howie's made four in a row. He's made 4 years in a row. He's made an August trade. If that holds up, does that add cornerback into the mix of safety? I think it's pretty obvious. Safety might be one. Edge rusher might be one for a trade, potential trade.
Mm-hmm.
Does this mean cornerback could be in that conversation as well?
Say non-zero chance from a standpoint of, again, I don't think, just kind of like I said about safety with Andrew Makuba and Sidney Brown, we all come into training camp saying, well, it's either going to be this guy or this guy on the roster. Like, I don't think that's how the battles work. I think it's not just like, oh, someone wins the job by default and they have to go with that guy. They're competing against, the alternative option that could be out there. If they see an upgrade, I tend to think that, the cost and everything probably won't line up to where they would do that. And they would rather just go with what they have. But yeah, if no one's winning the job convincingly, I don't think they're just going to roll with that and be like, well, we just have to stick with this and we can't bring someone in.
All those positions. What about Tyler Steen? Has that surprised you?
Not surprised me. I do think they want to give him, this shot. And he's got to be the starting right guard based on all indications we see. The fact that no one's rotating in with the first team tells you he's going to get that chance. Does he hold on to that job over the course of the season? We don't know. We'll see. But he's going to get that first crack, it looks like, assuming, he stays healthy. And I know Moro Jomo, is having good practices here. I don't think that's just because Tyler Steen has struggled. I think it's because Moro's a good player, and we saw that, last year at times, certainly. And I think Steen is not perfect. I don't know if he'll be a Pro Bowler, but I think he's at least a starting capable offensive lineman in the NFL. And also, I think the mindset the Eagles fan mindset can kind of get twisted on that from a standpoint of you're used to having all pro and Pro Bowl linemen at every position, that sometimes you're just going to have a guy. There's plenty of teams out there who have an entire offensive line.
There's 30 of them.
Average players. So it's fine.
Yeah. Go ahead, Stan.
BLG, give me your biggest winner so far through 5 days and your biggest loser of camp so far.
Yeah, I'm going to put my biggest winner as Quinyon Mitchell, because I just think he looks great. And he obviously looked great last year.
How good is last year's draft shaping up, dude? If he can be Cooper, if Jay can play in a meaningful role, Trotter is now looking good. I mean, that's looking like a really good draft.
That's a foundational, kind of draft class. And it's a time where they need it too, because they're spending all this money. They need cheap, young, good talent, and it's here. Quinyon, I mean, obviously we saw what he did last year, but the fact that he's the only receiver that has a prayer of covering AJ Brown, that tells you a lot. And
he's making plays on the ball now.
Making plays on the ball. There's times where he's beating AJ, fair and square. And I think AJ would admit that. and I don't think AJ wants to admit that unless, it's true. So
I love his mentality, BLG. AJ's was it's my job to help the defense get ready. And Quinyon's it's also my job to make him better too. I just love the way he approaches the game, man.
Yeah, he is really, really good. Excited for him. I'll also honorable mention Dallas Goedert. I think he's looked really good.
He's been great.
I know he has to stay healthy. I get it. We all know that. But if he does, I think he could have a career year. I think he looks even better than I've seen him in the past. I think he looks really, really, really good. It just seems like every time the ball goes his way, something good is happening.
The one rep with Makuba earlier before he got hurt in the middle of the field, that's when I said to myself, oh, that doesn't look good with a big tight end. But Dallas is really talented, to your point. Yeah.
And then stock down, my biggest stock down. I mean, you could go with Makuba because he's missing some time. We already talked about him a little bit. I'm going to go with someone who, it's not necessarily his fault. He's just hurt. It's Nico Dean. Where does Nico Dean fit into this team? Considering that you have Jeremiah Trotter Jr. looking good, and you have John Campbell probably going to outplay him even. So we don't know when Nico Dean's going to be back. We don't have the timeline. It's possible he misses at least the first 4 weeks of the season on the PUP list. And at that point, is he definitely ready for week 5? Maybe. We'll see. And if he is, how does he fit onto the field when if you have linebackers playing well ahead of him? And also, he's going into a contract year. This is a huge year for him. Like, it's just it's a weird spot. And I feel bad for him because he obviously played so well last year, and that injury was really unfortunate. And even though he wasn't available for a big chunk of the playoffs, he was such an important player for this team last year. And ideally would be this long-term piece for them, but it's kind of not looking in the cards.
Yeah, I definitely don't like long-term. Short-term, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give you the path, BLG. He's healthy, and maybe week 5, week 6, whatever, when he's healthy. I think a lot of people don't realize Zach Bond's playing middle linebacker. I think Vic would prefer him to play weak side. I think the edge rushers are so bad. You get the sub package. Nakobe's playing middle linebacker. He's healthy. Zach goes back to his position where he can be the difference maker, and Jihad Campbell helps the pass rush as the sub package. Play. That's the only way I can see it working out. But but I think it could work out that way.
Yeah, I don't think that's completely unrealistic.
Right. I do think I'm not saying like Nico Dean is doomed. There's no way. And it's also possible he comes back at a time where those linebackers aren't playing well, and he takes the job back, and he's great. But it's complicated. It's more complicated than it is he gets healthy and he's definitely back.
And to your point, long term, I think this is the last year.
Right.
I don't see any way where. Unfortunate, because he was great. He was great last year. As is BLG. Does a great job. Make sure you check out bleedinggreennation.com and his practice notes every day. He's there watching everything and doing a heck of a job. He and the staff over there. Make sure you follow him on the X platform at Brandon Gouton, and we always appreciate it, BLG.
Absolutely.
BLG, thank you, brother. We'll catch you next week. All right, man.
See you guys.
All right, see you.
Thanks, man.
Great job. There's BLG. Been doing a great job covering camp up to this point. Good stuff there. Good takeaways, Johnny Mac. 2 guys that were in the room. Good to listen to you two kind of go back and forth. Sometimes I like to remove and just hear you guys because you're there and in person, and I'm not. So that was good stuff listening to BLG. Some good overall takeaways. We do have some more super chats we will get to today to close out the show. Appreciate everybody for being here. John, Buddy's trying to get under your skin, so I'm warning you now. Buddy says $10. Buddy, thanks, man. With all due respect, Big Mac, it doesn't make sense with Herbert. Is it not concerning all of his best games?
What is the obsession with Justin Herbert?
I'm not sure. Let me just read it. Let me finish it. Is it not concerning all of his best games are week 12 versus 2 and 10 teams, and his worst games are the one that mattered versus great teams?
Again, I'm not going to entertain faulty premises. You're telling me every Justin Herbert good game is against a 2 and 10 team? Look at Pro Football Reference. I don't know what to tell you guys. First of all, I don't get the obsession with Justin Herbert. Number one, he's a very good quarterback. I don't know why Eagles fans have decided to shit on Justin Herbert, but for a fan base that's supposed to be very intelligent and very understanding of football, insulting Justin Herbert is not the way to go. He's a damn good
I think people put him above Jalen Hurts this year, and fans had a problem with that because they haven't seen him deliver the goods.
Well, again, then go to somebody, then go to the next list, because plenty of lists that I saw had Jalen Hurts above Justin Herbert. So if you don't like one list, go to the next list.
Well, let me ask you this about Herbert. And I agree with you. He is obviously a very talented quarterback. But how do you gauge the 2 playoff games where he actually was bad? I mean, the 2 playoff games, Johnny, had the 4-pick game. And then the other game, he had the 4 touchdown lead over the Jaguars where Trevor Lawrence threw 4 picks in the first half. And then they come back and win the game down 4 touchdowns in the second half. So 2 games that, Justin Herbert just didn't perform when the moment required, a good performance from the quarterback. And I think people do look at that, whether they're right or wrong, John, and just say, I don't really care if you're a great regular season quarterback. If we get to the postseason, then this is what you do.
Well, I don't really care about people who don't understand evaluating football.
Well, how do you evaluate those 2 games?
Well, what you're looking at 2 games. Let's see. I don't know. I'm looking up Justin Herbert right now. He's played 79 professional games. He's played 42 college games. That's a lot of football.
Yeah.
And you guys are that's like I always say highlight scouting. People will go on Twitter and they'll see a highlight. Oh, this is great. So you're taking out of that sample size, you're taking out maybe one of the worst performances, or maybe and again, if you blow a 4 touchdown, there's a lot of people involved.
I know.
A lot of freaking
know
people
that.
involved. There's a lot of people involved. Warren Moon, who's in the Hall of Fame, once gave up a 35, 3 lead, whatever it was. There's a lot of people involved when you give up that. You look at the Falcons collapsing in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Kyle Shanahan has as big a part of that as anybody else. The game was over if he just tempered his ego and kicked the field goal, ran the football a couple of times, it takes a field goal, the game's over. There's a lot of people involved. It's a faulty premise. And you're taking one game out of that sample size and you're trying to argue with me. I'm not picking on you, but these fans. And A, I don't understand the Herbert stuff with the Eagles. Who gives a shit? But B, you're not showing off your intelligence of a fan if you're going to pick out bad quarterbacks and you start with Justin Herbert. That's just dumb. He's a damn good player.
Here's Buddy again.
And by the way, I went through this with Matthew Stafford on Detroit, who people would shit on for years and years and years. And I would tell him he's a damn good quarterback. And then he goes to Los Angeles in a better situation, better system, better coach, better supported cast. He wins the Super Bowl and everybody thinks he's great. And now he's descending. He's not the player who was in Detroit when he was losing a bunch of games. If you can't understand that, I can't help you. But Justin Herbert is not the guy people should be pointing to as evidence of a bad quarterback.
I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, but I do think those I know it's only 2 games out of the 100 he's played, or whatever the heck, however many he played that you named. I do think you got to fucking perform in the postseason, John. I mean, a good team, bad team around you.
Well,
if you're a quarterback and your team gets to postseason football, man, you got to fucking play well. You got to.
I don't have the encyclopedic memory of the Los Angeles Chargers. I remember the game.
You shouldn't.
I remember the game. I remember the collapse, and it was bad. I know there were
pick one was a lot worse for Herbert.
I know there were other people involved in that bad play. I don't know. Ben Roethlisberger's got 2. Probably the worst game he ever played in the Super Bowl was in the Super Bowl, and he won it. And everybody forgets because, he won it, but he played like shit. They just happened to persevere and overcome it. And by no means, Ben Roethlisberger is a legit Hall of Fame quarterback. That's a great quarterback. You didn't play well in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes played like shit in the Super Bowl.
I know.
Twice.
And Jalen's best fucking game I've maybe ever seen. We lost the Super Bowl. I loved his quote this year about when I did it the way everybody wanted with all the stats and the accolades, I didn't get the win. So I'm done caring about what people want. It was a good quote by him. But he follows up. He says, Big Mac, it's a better look if you just admit you were wrong about Hurts. It's okay, bro. Ego check, my G. You were on record saying it was a bad pick, LMAO. Buddy's coming for blood today.
But Buddy's not coming for blood. I've said he's consistently a good quarterback. Buddy's just wants to be right, like every fan. Like you think you're dunking on me. You're the one talking about Justin Herbert being a bad quarterback. Go talk to somebody. Go talk to somebody in the NFL. Get a job covering the NFL. Try to find somebody who says, hey, Buddy, I agree with Buddy. Justin Herbert can't play quarterback. Go find that guy. Not the dunk you think, Buddy, but thanks for the $5.
Buddy, thanks for the super chat. Here's Vulnerable Vitality, lightening the mood a little. He says, a hardball question for John. Blondes or brunettes?
All of the above. I mean, I don't discriminate at all.
There you go. Good response. My beautiful woman is a blonde, so I'm going to take blonde today.
All of the above. There are, yeah, it could be anything. Everything works.
Good response. Final super chat of the day. Prince says, so much for elevating the conversation, J-Mac.
Oh, come on. The fact that you would say that is embarrassing. I mean, Prince, you listen every day. If you don't think you learn from this show, you're lying to yourself. And if you think you know more about evaluating football players than me, you're lying to yourself. So whether you want to be elevated or not, I'm dragging you along to be elevated.
Prince, you're hitched to the wagon whether you like it or not, my friend. Good response by Johnny Mac there. All right, John, your final thoughts. I'll let you get out of here before these people drive you to drink midday on a Wednesday.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. But I say from day one, look, if you got a faulty premise, I'm not arguing it. It's a waste of time. So, try a different avenue.
Good stuff.
And the weird Justin Herbert stuff, you're an Eagles fan. Don't worry about Justin Herbert. If you don't like one list that had him above Jalen Hurts, go to the next list that had him below Jalen Hurts, and then you're happy. I saw plenty of lists where he's ahead of Justin Herbert. So just find that list. They're both good quarterbacks.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Great show today, brother. We will catch you tomorrow in the morning for a brief segment before the day number 6 of practice, or open practice, I should continue to say, for the reporters. They obviously have other practices going on, or walkthroughs going on that the reporters are not at. So day 6 for open availability will be tomorrow. Johnny Mac, great show today, brother. I'll catch you tomorrow, my friend.
All right. Thanks, all.
All right, thanks, J-Mac. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen. Give him a follow on X at JF McMullen, and a great show today. Big thanks to Mike Gill. Big thanks to Brandon Lee Goutwin, our 2 great guests today. Appreciate them checking in and giving us the rundown on today's show. A lot of good conversation today, everybody.